Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 7 Episode 18. It's called Eye of the Beholder. So spoilers for the episode as always, and yeah, this is a kind of a Troy-focused episode. It's kind of hard to describe actually without going really deep into it. Not that I'm trying to avoid spoilers necessarily, but it's just basically after a crew member kills themselves at the start of the episode, suddenly, out of nowhere seemingly, shocks everyone, and an investigation as to why this person did this starts to unfold. It becomes clear there's some kind of empath, psychic kind of influence that's maybe made him to do it, and Troy's sort of like starting to discover it and is starting to feel the effects of it herself. I guess that's the gist of it at its core.
That works, yeah.
Also, Worf is kind of like the secondary character here, and there's a bit of advancement in the Worf and Diana Troy potential romance, as it were. So, which was teased before that he had some feelings, some thoughts rummaging through his brain. So, yeah, how did you feel about Eye of the Beholder, Connor?
It's I think 80% of this is a nothing episode. Like it's just so bland, and like I found myself just, it wasn't even like painfully bad, I was just bored. And then there's 20% at the end that I really dislike to just annoy me.
I thought you were going the other way. I thought you were going to say there was 20% that you really liked.
No. It just wanted to annoy me at the end after wasting my time. That's how I felt.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what part you're talking about.
It's a Troy romance episode, except somehow it becomes more annoying.
Okay, I mean, I think I disagree with that a little bit. Not that I love the episode by any means. I think it's kind of it's in that kind of decent-ish kind of range to me. It's just okay. But I think for me, it's better than a typical Troy romance episode. If only because I do think the idea of a crew member on the Enterprise doing, like, killing themselves is actually kind of an interesting concept to explore. Admittedly, the fact that there's an influence that made him do it wasn't just actually that he was depressed, which actually would be more interesting for the show to tackle. At least I thought it was an interesting premise, and I didn't hate a couple of little, cutesy things between her and Worf, right? I'm not mad at the prodding of that as a possibility. Obviously the episode does pull a bit of a twist towards the end where you find out like about half or so of the episode didn't really happen. It was all inside Troy's head, and I suspect that's what you're very upset at.
I was getting annoyed before that, and then that was like it tried to justify me being annoyed at some of the things it was doing by pretending it didn't matter, like that none of it happened. But that's equally as annoying in a different way.
I think it didn't bug me that much because I think so much of what Troy was seeing was clearly fake anyway. Like, clearly she was being manipulated and seeing things that weren't true, right? Because the whole thing with the psychic echo, if you want to call it that, was that it was trying to put her in a situation where she was in this new romance with Worf, and she is getting jealous because that's what this thing does. It's what happened to the previous guy, is that basically he was convinced that his partner was in an affair, and in a fit of rage killed him. In fact, I'm just going to jump in and say it right now. This reminds me a lot of an episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. A season 2 episode in particular in which the spirits of a teacher and student who were having an affair, and it ended in like a sort of double murder.
I do remember that episode.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Very similar in terms of the way it was playing out at times here, to be honest.
Yeah, fine. I'll let that slide.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think? Like I say, it's clearly not real. I think what annoyed me is the way the directing, the filmmaking of the episode overplayed it. And that's what was getting on my nerves more. It's like, okay, I know it's not real, but it started playing the shots and the music like it was like a De Palma thriller. Like it was really over the top. And like I kind of hate that. It was grating on me.
Yeah. I think because it was clear that what she was saying, at least a lot towards the end, was fake anyway. Even if I still thought a lot of the other stuff had happened. I didn't think we were going to pull the the last 30 minutes have all been in her head kind of trick, which is what they do. It turns out the first time that Worf opened the door to the plasma bay thing, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure the hardcore Star Trek nerds are all screaming what it's called. But But the first time he opened that door, it turns out that everything happened in that moment when he opened that door. So in the last couple of minutes, it sort of snaps back when he pulls her back and says, oh, if I hadn't been here, you might have jumped in, just like the other guy did. And it turns out everything we'd seen played out in her head, including the romance that had kind of blossomed, which in a weird way was a little bit of a relief, because I did think that the initial moment where they did start kissing felt a little bit weirdly kind of quick and rushed. And this kind of at least made sense as to why it felt quick and rushed, because it wasn't real. It was just kind of propulsing forward in her head.
I think it's also extremely weird. We've now had 2 episodes this season from alternate perspectives of the like, you know, one each of the romance, where none of it was real in different ways.
I don't hate that though, because I think my favorite part of the whole episode, right, regardless of how I feel about the rest of it, which I think the actual investigation, that's kind of middling. It's just kind of uninteresting, which is why I don't think it's that good either. But
yeah, that's why I say I kind of found I was bored a lot of the episode. It was just, okay, we're just doing this.
But the very ending, right, after Troy's explained, at least we don't know exactly how much he's told Picard and the others about what she saw, but it is confirmed that this guy in the backstory, played by the dude from Aliens, who's like the basically, so he murdered someone on this ship when it was being built like 8 years ago before season 1 was. And I actually thought that was also a cool little idea, that we're investigating a murder that took place in the Enterprise that no one knew about. They could have done more with it, obviously, but in concept I like it. But at the end of the episode, she's explaining to them what she saw, and like, yeah, this is a thing that happened here. It seems like, you know, this killer, you know, jumped into the beam and some sort of psychic empath residue left behind, and it's why but it's only affecting people who are also at least partially empaths, because they're the only ones that can pick up on it. And the guy that died at the start was like that, and you're like that, blah blah blah. And there's a little moment where Worf afterwards says, oh, when you sort of snapped out of it, when I saved you from jumping in, you hugged me and said, oh, you're alive, thank God you're alive, or something to that effect. Why did you say that? And she's like, well, because in my vision, you know, you'd been killed. And he says, well, who killed me? And she's like, and she sort of just says, oh, you know, how hell have no fear like a woman scorned, and walks off smiling. I think what I kind of like about this moment is that if you tie it back into the idea that Worf is starting to feel things, and he's starting to prod with the idea of, oh, should I try and ask her out or do something? Obviously, everything that happens in the middle of the episode feels too rushed. It feels too forced upon everyone, and they're just all of a sudden waking up together and like being all cutesy, and it's kind of strange. I like this little hint for him at the end that she's also felt something for him. Like, it's like this idea that she had like a little, you know, like in her vision, for whatever reason, her mind picked him as the romantic partner, and this was a little hint at it at the end. So now he's got a reason why he might feel a little bit of a confidence boost to maybe pursue it. Like, they might never come back to it. They might never touch it again, but they've now hinted at it twice from both directions, which makes me think that they're at least planning at this stage in the writing to do something with it later on.
It's definitely something they were toying with, yeah. At the very least.
So I like that moment at the end. The rest of it, there's a mix of like some good concepts kind of jumbled in, and then some kind of just, you know, there's like a bit early on where Data basically talks about like how he considered rebooting himself early on when he became sentient, because like some of his processes weren't working.
And never see Data again.
It never comes up again. But I did think for a minute, this is quite interesting to broach this subject with an android who effectively almost did it, and then sort of, you know, logically talked himself out of it, and kind of sharing that with Geordi. I thought, oh, this is in. But this is the thing, the first 5 minutes feels like a really heavy episode. Everyone's been very serious because of what's happened. And then once it gets into the investigation, oh no, there's spooky bollocks, and, you know, we're seeing visions of things.
The first 5 minutes are the best of the episode, easily.
I think I agree with that. I like the moment at the end, but yeah, like, but by that point, we're so far removed from that first 5 minutes, I wasn't even thinking about what the tone was anymore. So.
Yeah, that's true.
But I was into the serious episode dealing with this, and I'm avoiding saying the word because YouTube doesn't like the word, but, you know, dealing with this subject, and then a couple of little touches here or there. But for the most part, the actual investigation was just kind of whatever. I think the one thing that feels weird about the whole like middle part being not true, and I don't even think they made this as clear as they could have at the end, is that I was very surprised when she's like looking through all the people that have worked here and on the station where the ship was built, and she sees the guy's face, and she's like, it's him. Yeah, he's been on the Enterprise for the last 2 years. Let's go speak to him. I thought, oh, that's actually interesting. I'm surprised. I assumed it'd be someone who'd left before, but he's still here. Was a genuine surprise. and they even go talk to him, and it's kind of like a tense conversation with a question, and when he's being kind of evasive. But finding out all that was fake, and that he actually died in the incident back before the ship was finished. Like he's been gone ever since then. And this was just like residue because he was psychic that sort of hung around. Like that, I don't think it's a bad idea necessarily. I think there's something you could do with that. But I think it's such a small part near the end of this episode that's not that well explored or explained that it just doesn't really have the muscle to do anything with it.
Yeah, okay. I get where you're coming from with that. There is definitely ideas in this episode that I think, I feel like we've said this a lot this season. There's a lot of ideas that could potentially be good episodes, maybe even great episodes, and they just don't quite follow up on the right threads, or they make odd choices, like pretty consistently. Like you don't know, obviously there's some good episodes, but by and large this season, there's been a lot of this where you see the idea, but everything after that kind of just falls apart.
Yeah, I don't know why that is necessarily. It's strange.
It is, because I mean, it's not like a case of, oh, the show's run its course, it's ran out of ideas, because clearly the ideas are there. I don't know if it's a case of just if it needed more like actual editing. It's like from at a conceptual script level. Like if it needed more like more passes, run throughs, being more critical, or if it was more just it'll do, it's fine, it'll be good enough.
Yeah, I don't know, like if there was a significant change in writing staff maybe for the final season, so that the people who normally brought the scripts home to like the place where all the good episodes in the past had been up to.
This is why I say it feels higher up than just the writer, though, because like I say, like it feels like they're still coming up with the good ideas, but there's no one to prod them to be like, you should explore this angle and follow that up, because all the character voices are still, which is why I feel like it's not a drastic change in writing stuff. All the characters still feel like themselves. Everyone still feels pretty natural. It's just they're following the wrong ideas in the episodes.
Yeah, but I'm thinking though that these ideas have all been sitting around from previous seasons, and that's why the ideas are largely still there, but like the final scripts aren't quite yet. Now they're not all gone. I mean, I just checked the finale just because I was curious. Yeah, Ronald D. Moore's listed as one of the writers on that, so it's not like all the good names had gone. So I don't know if there's I don't know. It's strange. I don't know if there was more time constraints with the final season or something that was maybe hampering things. I don't know why there would be any more time constraints than normal, but this was when they were consistently pumping out their 26 episodes every year without fail. This isn't these days when 8 episodes takes 3 years to make.
Definitely no shots at anything in particular there.
No, nothing in particular.
No, okay.
There's several shows that come to mind, frankly. I mean, this isn't just one.
I think just the week that we're recording this, at least one springs to mind in particular.
Yeah. But I mean, at least Stranger Things, though, like it started off almost yearly. I'm thinking of Severance, which was season 1, then 3 years passed, season 2. Like, we're not even pretending anymore that we're going to try and be out within the next 18 months. No, we're taking years now for a season. I'll be in my 50s by the time Severance finishes, god damn it.
Something needs to be done. Let's get out of hand.
I know. Now you got TNG. Now, yeah, they're not all bangers, but there's enough good episodes in the 170 or whatever it is that, like, it's definitely was a higher...
Maybe this is a little bit old man yells at cloud.
Yeah.
I do kind of prefer that. And this might sound weird. I probably watch less TV now in this current format, because by the time another season comes out, it's years. I'm like, okay, I've either got to rewatch it to remember the minutiae, or I watch it and I don't enjoy it as much because I don't remember the minutiae, or it's been so long that, I don't know, other things have just taken my interest, other TV shows, other movies, anything. Whereas with this style of TV, okay, the longest break you ever really had was 3-4 months over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, they tended to wait until, like, so there was no break. So what you'd have is maybe a 6-month break, but that's because there'd be no breaks once it started airing. So 6 months was the longest for us, I think, typically at the time. and then US would have been like 3 or 4 months. But US would have had those like scattered little mini breaks all over the season.
Right, but like as annoying as those breaks are while you're watching it, because you got your routine, you know, okay, Tuesday night I'm watching this show, and then for 2 random weeks in November it's just not on. That's mildly annoying. But 2 weeks isn't long enough to break a habit.
No,
3 years is too long to. That's long enough to break a habit of me coming back to your show. There's a lot of shows I haven't finished that I liked a season or multiple seasons of just because it's so long between seasons that I sometimes lose interest.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting to a tangent.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I was only kind of getting at the fact that there's going to be some duds in your 20 plus episode seasons. Maybe 13 is the good middle ground, but now we've abandoned that for 8, which is just like tiny.
Yeah, it's madness.
Yeah,
but anyway, back to this episode in particular.
Yeah,
I think the decision to make like the back half-ish of the episode not real. Actually, I felt myself getting frustrated at the episode before I even knew that's where it was going. And in hindsight, I can understand why. Like, so obviously, I mentioned the directorial choices of it, like playing it up like this thriller. But even before that, I noticed the dream logic where I felt it just cutting to different scenes, like we just jumped. And there were multiple times where I felt it, and I was like, "Oh, that was weird." And they're gonna go, "Yeah, that was intentional because it's not real," but it felt like just awkward while I was watching it. One of the examples that springs to mind is Troy and Worf are they're in the lift. They go their separate ways, and Troy's like, "Oh, I'll meet you in my room later," and then it immediately cuts to her room, and she's like completely got changed, and the doorbell goes, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, come in," thinking it's Worf, and the assumption is time has passed, but the way it was shot and the way it was paced in the scenes itself, it felt instant. And again, I'm assuming that's supposed to be intentional with the dream logic.
Yeah, because that's
this
after
isn't real. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, everything after that. I mean, I actually don't remember some of the things from earlier in the episode were before or after the door opening moment. Because I can't. It makes sense that Worf going to Riker and kind of broaching the idea of him being okay with like asking someone out that he's been with in the past. It makes sense that was real, but I think it was too late in the episode for it to be real.
I don't remember specifically, but in my head, it has to be real, because otherwise, why would
Troy be imagining that?
Why would Troy
part?
be having that, imagine that conversation? I feel like everything after the bit where it's all not real, surely all of that has to just follow from Troy's perspective.
It should.
Like, you can have Worf there, and it should. And if it doesn't, then that just feels inconsistent again.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check that, because obviously I wasn't looking for it, because I didn't know it was going to do that.
Again, that's what I say. I'm not confident, but surely that's real.
Yeah. And I mean, I like that scene well enough for what it was. You know, Riker being all he's chatting up some female officer, and he comes up to the bar, and Worf is like, "Oh, so and so is enjoying your company." He's like, "Oh, I'd like to think so." And it's like he's like trying to say, "Wait, can I have her instead?" But that's not what he means. He just means, "Oh, if I was going to ask her, I'd definitely speak to you first and get your permission." And so it's like an awkward scene. It's Worf being uncomfortable, and that's usually entertaining. So it's on the base principal character level, it's working well enough. But it is kind of strange, because if that is after the door opens, and I don't remember if it is or it isn't, then that's kind of weird. But yeah, it does the whole thing where she has the visions early on, and it's because I think when the door opens and she's had these visions and she sees kind of like this POV shot, and it's like she's seen the POV of a killer, right? And that's immediately what at first she thinks she's seen it from the perspective of the person who already died, but she's actually seeing, and I kind of got this immediately, that she's looking at this other woman in the vision from the past, and she's clearly scared of whoever's looking at her. This is clearly something where this guy was threatening her or going to kill her, and it was very much that. I didn't hate the kind of the horror movie kind of like little touches to some of those moments, but they're very kind of individual. It's not like they kept that up throughout the rest of the, like if you want to do a creepy episode where she keeps having these creepy visions and they're kind of menacing, you see a reflection of the killer and it's kind of skewed, And it's obvious that he's the villain the first time he sees like Image in the vision, because he has this menacing look on his face, and I'm like, clearly he's the suspicious one. He looks like he means harm. Like there's no misrepresenting this.
She knows that as well, right? That's not like just the audience getting that. Like that's in character. Troy is also aware. Okay, this guy's the wrong one. So, yeah, again, that's another bit where I feel like there's a different episode there that is good, where you follow like Troy having these visions, and like instead of just this kind of by the numbers investigation, you really go in that angle of psychic investigation. Like I feel like you could play that up for something instead, but
yeah, and there's maybe also more to milk out the idea, because Troy, to go back into the room where the psychic visions happened, because the first time it happens, I think it's before the doors opened, and she goes to Crusher, and Crusher says, "Hey, I can give you not a stimulant, but something to nullify your psychic suppressant. Thank you. Something to nullify your psychic midichlorians, or whatever she called them." Right? Basically, it's just the stuff in your brain, the chemical in your brain that makes you a telepath. We're going to suppress that so that it's not hitting you as hard, right? And it's okay, let's do that. And there's a little moment later on, and it's definitely once things have switched to dream logic, but where she's getting kind of jealous, and she's like, "Oh, it's because I can't feel the emotions like I normally do. I'm so used to just feeling what other people feel. I feel kind of like lost without them and naked without them." And I'm like, yeah, there's an interesting episode there of like taking her powers away and realizing just how many normal like situations she now feels uncomfortable in, because she just can't tell by instinct how someone feels around her and how uncomfortable that makes her. Like, does this person is he secretly kind of angry at me? Is he secretly attracted to me? Is he secretly whatever, like not knowing, and this idea that we all live like that, right? And we all have to go off visual cues and how people are speaking, and
but
so on.
But she's never learned those, because she's never had to.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept in there as well, but it's just kind of a throwaway thing in the middle of this one.
I'm getting more frustrated the more I think about it, because now, before I was just frustrated because I was like, okay, so much of that episode was bland. Now I'm frustrated because I'm like, okay, there's just enough little breadcrumbs there that you can build something better. To be honest, you probably can't build this into something better. You probably have to do 3 or 4 different episodes tackling these different things separately and get individually good episodes out of those.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm not that frustrated. It just we don't rate the episodes, but I kind of came out going, yeah, it's like a 6. It's fine. Like it has a couple of nice moments, has a couple of good character bits, some nice concepts, but it just doesn't all come together into a really big satisfying point or conclusion that really nailed it for me. Like, because it could either have been like a really fun just excuse to have a nice thriller of an episode of the tension of like, who's this spirit, and it's not really a spirit, but just it kind of plays that way. Or you can have it be a fun episode where we get to explore this relationship that's not really yet, but to see how it makes Troy feel, and like some of the more fun character stuff is probably just seeing, what would it be like if they were dating and they're being cutesy. Like they do that little moment where they're in bed together and she gets a call, like they always do, where it's just Crusher saying, "Hey, Counselor Troy, your suppressant's ready," and then they go to kiss, and then they get interrupted again with another beep, and it's Crusher again saying, "Hey, Lieutenant Worf, the medical supplies need to be moved," and they just sort of have a little giggle, and I'm like, yeah, there's something interesting about seeing 2 of these main characters in a relationship, because even though they've told us and we've seen little hints that Riker and Troy have been a thing in the past, they've never been like just in an active like relationship on the ship. It's always been kind of like some flirtations, hints of what they were before they were on the ship together, that kind of thing. For all the shit we give all the romance episodes, they've never actually just had a couple like be 2 main characters in a relationship, and that's actually kind of surprising in 7 seasons. That it feels kind of weird to see it.
Yeah, I think we give a lot of the romance episode shit because they're always just an episode, right?
Yeah, they're always throwaway, yeah.
Yeah, like over your previous seasons, the closest we've come to a relationship would probably have been Troy and Riker's history and like their potential, and we've never been like really actively against that.
No, I mean, obviously, I think a lot of modern shows go too far in the other direction, where every single character has to have a romantic interest, every single person has to be constantly exploring their feelings, and it feels like people are pairing up just because they feel like we have to pair up everyone because that's the rules of television. I think there's like a middle ground where maybe this show, as good as this show is, and the things that this show is good at and has been good at have been exceptional, and obviously it's already cemented itself by this point as being what it is. But yeah, there probably was room for a relationship somewhere that was a bit more meaty than any of the things we've gotten.
Yeah, also there's a few different pairings they've explored the potential of. You mentioned Troy and Riker. I'm thinking Picard and Crusher has been dabbled
early on, yes, one or two.
Yeah, but like even earlier this season, there's been like 1 or 2 points where it's like, oh, that could have been something. Like it's at a point where it never will be now, but there's like they're addressing that. Yeah, once upon a time, we could have let that become something. Yeah.
Bizarrely, O'Brien and Keiko are the
and they got shunted off to a different show entirely.
They did. And obviously that's not quite the same as what I'm talking about, because Keiko's very much just the supporting character in O'Brien's
who was already a supporting character in the show,
so that's a lot, like, having effectively a red shirt spouse is a very different thing from having two main characters be in a relationship. But that's still more than any of these other characters have. I mean, the closest we get is what Riker gets this episode, which is he clearly is having lots of sex with attractive women. We hint at that occasionally, but
that's been an ongoing part of Riker's character forever. But like, O'Brien was different. The idea of any of our characters being in a stable relationship, even if the other character was basically nothing at the time. The fact that they were in a relationship did impact him compared to someone who wasn't in a relationship. It did impact his character.
Yeah, so there's some differences there, and I think that even all these main characters have never had that. O'Brien's the only one who got, again, I'll call him the red shirt spouse. They effectively just a small supporting character who'll pop in occasionally to sort of just confirm, yes, they are married, they are in a relationship, but they're not necessarily a major character on their own. But even that's been pretty slim on this show, relatively speaking. So Deep Space Nine's already got ahead of it in that. And who knows, maybe there'll be a full-fledged romance on that show. That's got like a good 5.5 seasons still to give us that, if they want to go down that path. But we'll see. And it's not to say that I think it definitely needs it, but I think just watching this episode made me go, yeah, it's kind of weird that like this. I mean, these parts of it where they're being cutesy do feel kind of special because they never have been really done this. And that's why it's sticking out to me. Whereas most modern shows will have been doing it from like episode 2, and they'll feel by the time you get to episode 5, you're like, okay, I'm sick of the romance bullshit. Can we move on? There's a healthy balance to it.
There is. There definitely is. And like I say, it's not really to the show's detriment that it never did that. No, really, but it could have done it, and it would have been nice to see to some degree.
Yeah, I think especially in this season, which has been a bit more in the middling, mediocre territory for the most part. It's the sort of thing that might have, given it some space, I
think it just spice in the modern sense. But no, even if just the fact that would have changed a couple of the character dynamics this season, long term, might have been, even in some of the weaker episodes, might have given a new perspective, a new angle to enjoy it. Whereas, as I said earlier, to its credit, that everyone still feels like themselves, despite weaker episodes, all the characters still feel like themselves, but maybe that's a little bit to his detriment as well. There isn't anything fresh to inspire anything new there. Yeah, and maybe they're not willing to like do anything that would change one of the characters too much at this point. We're a bit too late for that. So maybe you can feel them being a little timid when it comes to that stuff. When I'm not saying completely change them, but yeah, putting Worf and Troy in a relationship would feel like a new direction. It would feel a little bit fresh and different. It's not completely changing them if it feels like growth. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Some growth would be good. But hey, there you go. So that's our thoughts on Eye of the Beholder, a middling episode, all things said. So we'll be back to Deep Space Nine next time with Star Trek, but when we do return to The Next Generation, we'll be looking at episode 19. Here's a description, and that image is not promising. The description reads, when a new torpedo guidance system malfunctions, Picard and Data go chasing after it into an asteroid field, while the crew are left behind to deal with their own strange
behaviors. Uh-huh. Yeah, okay.
Look, I mean, that sounded fine until the last little sentence where I'm like, uh-huh.
I mean, the rain's actually better than this episode was. The image just looks very, like, I thought it was going to be a werewolf episode based on this image. Now, maybe I'm misreading what I'm seeing.
Well, maybe someone's strange behavior is related to the moon.
Yeah, but when you're out in space, like in your
there's always a moon somewhere. You never know when it's going to hit.
Does it just transfer to whatever's moon's closest?
Maybe that's the danger. You just have to plan your travel around the moons. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we'll find out, I guess, when we're back to Next Generation. But that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Like, subscribe, all that stuff helps out a bunch if you do, and of course support all the stuff over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube membership. Thanks to everyone who already does. It does help keep everything coming. There's bonus stuff and all that over there if you want to go check it out. But yeah, that is us. So thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there someone's fantasizing about Wesley Crusher jumping off a bridge every day. Wouldn't be me though.